My neighbor, the HOA president, demanded I tear down my son's treehouse, claiming it violated code. He even sent official letters threatening daily fines. But I had read the bylaws, every single page, and discovered a loophole that would not only save the treehouse, but cost him everything. He had no idea what was coming. It all started 6 months ago, when my son, Leo, and I built a treehouse in our backyard. It wasn't just any treehouse, it was a mini fortress with a slide and a rope ladder, his dream come true. The HOA president, Mr. Henderson, lived 2 houses down and immediately took issue, despite it being fully within our property lines. He first approached me while I was painting the railing. He said, "That monstrosity has to go. It's an eyesore and clearly against community standards." I calmly explained it was a temporary structure, not a permanent building, and therefore exempt from architectural review. But Mr. Henderson wasn't having it. A week later, I received an official-looking letter from the HOA citing Section 4.3.c. No permanent structures exceeding 100 square feet not attached to the primary residence. It threatened a $50 daily fine if not removed within 30 days. I spent the next 2 weeks poring over the entire HOA bylaws document, all 78 pages. I highlighted, cross-referenced, and even consulted a lawyer friend. And there it was, in Section 2.1b, tucked away under Community Improvements. It stated, any community improvement or structure constructed by a resident and remaining for more than 1 year automatically becomes HOA property and maintenance responsibility, unless explicitly rejected in writing by the board within 90 days of completion. Mr. Henderson had never rejected it, only threatened fines. I had receipts, his original letter, dated 5 months after completion. At the next HOA meeting, Mr. Henderson stood up, smugly stating, "Mr. Peterson's treehouse has now incurred over $1,500 in fines, and we will be filing a lien." I stood up, held up his letter, and read Section 2.1b aloud. The entire room went silent. The treehouse was officially the HOA's problem, and Mr. Henderson, as president, was responsible for its upkeep and all the accumulated fines. He resigned that night. His eyes were wide, realizing he'd just signed his own financial ruin. My coworker, Marcus, claimed my innovative patient charting system as his own, presenting it to hospital administration. I smiled, letting him dig his own grave, because the entire system had a secret back door, a hidden line of code I'd planted, set to trigger an embarrassing malfunction during his presentation. He had no idea the trap was about to spring. It all started 6 months ago. I'd been working on a new digital charting system for the emergency room, something to streamline patient intake and reduce errors. Hours, late nights, countless revisions. It was my baby. I even had a prototype working on my personal tablet, which I'd sometimes use during slow shifts, just testing features. One afternoon, Marcus, a notoriously lazy but charming coworker, saw me using it. "What's that fancy gizmo, Mark?" he asked, leaning over my shoulder. I naively explained the concept, even showed him some of the UI. "This could revolutionize our workflow," I said, genuinely excited. He just nodded, a strange glint in his eye. A week later, I overheard him talking to our department head, Sarah, in her office. "My new system, Sarah, it's going to cut down intake times by 30%. My blood ran cold. He was talking about my system. I confronted him later. "Marcus, what are you doing?" He just shrugged. "Finders keepers, I guess. You showed it to me, so now it's mine." I was furious, but also saw an opportunity. Instead of fighting him directly, I subtly made a few improvements to the code. A small, almost invisible piece of script that would activate under specific conditions, like, say, being presented to a large group of administrators. The day of the big presentation arrived. Marcus was up there, beaming, taking all the credit. Sarah and the hospital board were all gathered, looking impressed. He was just about to demonstrate the patient lookup feature when I got a text from my friend, Jess, from IT. "Hey, the new server update just finished installing hospital-wide. Hope Marcus's system is compatible." That was my cue. I had timed my code to trigger on the first large-scale network access after a major update. Marcus clicked to demonstrate. The screen went blank, then flashed, "Error 404, innovation not found, original author, my name." The board members gasped. Sarah stared at Marcus, who was visibly sweating. He tried to laugh it off. "Just a minor glitch, folks." But the message persisted, flashing larger and larger. Sarah calmly said, "Marcus, I think we have a few things to discuss in my office." The board knew, and Marcus was speechless. My sister stole our wedding venue deposit, then tried to frame our wedding planner. My fiancée secretly recorded everything. We knew the moment she walked into the ceremony, wearing a white gown, the trap was set. She thought she'd ruin our day. Instead, she paid for it all. My fiancée, Sarah, and I had been planning our dream wedding for over a year. We'd saved diligently for a quaint vineyard venue. The deposit alone was $5,000. We sent it to the venue, or so we thought. 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a call. The venue manager said they hadn't received anything. I was floored. Sarah checked our bank statements. The money was gone, transferred to an account with a name we didn't recognize. We suspected my sister, Brenda. She'd always been jealous of Sarah, always trying to one-up me. Sarah decided to set a trap. She called Brenda, feigning panic, saying the venue was threatening to cancel. "Brenda, you know I can't tell my brother. He'd freak out. Can you help us fix this?" Brenda, thinking she had us, said, "Oh darling, I'm so sorry. I think that flaky wedding planner must have run off with it. I warned you about Jess." Sarah quietly pressed record on her phone. She kept Brenda talking for 20 minutes, letting her dig her own grave. Brenda suggested we use her friend's much cheaper barn venue instead, offering to smooth things over with the manager there. Just make sure you say Jess handled everything okay, she chirped. Wedding day. Brenda walks in wearing a floor-length white lace gown. She beams, thinking she's the star. Sarah just smiles. When the officiant asked for objections, Brenda stood up. I object. This wedding is a sham. They used stolen money. Sarah then calmly stepped forward. Actually, Brenda, we have a little something to play for everyone. She held up her phone. Brenda's voice filled the room, confessing to stealing the deposit and trying to frame Jess. The police, who were already there, escorted Brenda out. The vineyard manager, moved by our story, gifted us the venue. My sister had no idea that her own words would buy us the perfect day. My grandmother Evelyn left me her old cedar chest in her will. My sister Clara went absolutely silent when the lawyer read it out. Her face drained, her smile vanished. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. What was in that chest? I didn't know then, but Clara did. She left you the chest, Clara hissed. She said it right there in Judge Miller's chambers after Grandma Evelyn's will reading. My sister Clara practically vibrated with anticipation. She always thought she was the favorite. I just sat, quiet, as Mr. Davies, the lawyer, read the bequests. When he reached the cedar chest, Clara's jaw dropped. She'd always assumed everything was hers. I'd been the quiet one, helping without asking. She called herself the heir apparent for 15 years. Grandma Evelyn had passed 3 months prior at 94. She'd been sharp until the end. She always loved me, even if Clara never believed it. The chest itself was nothing special. Old, worn, in Grandma's attic forever, too heavy to move alone. Clara stormed out of the chambers. Mr. Davies cleared his throat, continued. He handed me the key to the chest, a small, ornate silver key. It felt important. Later, I went to Grandma's house. Clara was there, pacing, demanding to know what was inside. You think you're so smart, don't you, Ben? She sneered. Just wait until you open it. I opened the chest. Not jewelry, not cash, just a stack of old letters, tied with a faded blue ribbon. And one single yellowed photograph. The first letter, dated 1968, was from a lawyer. It detailed a trust fund, a very large trust fund. For me, established at my birth. The second letter, dated 1970, was from Grandma Evelyn to her lawyer. It stated the fund was for me only upon her death, and no one else was to know. The third letter, dated 1971, confirmed the trust fund was fully established. It was worth $2.3 million then. Now it was over $12 million. Clara saw the figures. Her eyes went wide. $12 million, she shrieked. This is impossible. Dad would have known. But the photograph, that was the real kicker. It was Dad, much younger, with another woman. Not Mom, and a baby. Me. Date stamp, October 23rd, 1968. I was adopted. Dad never told me. I looked at Clara. Our father didn't know because he wasn't my father, I said. Grandma Evelyn was my biological grandmother. She ensured I would be taken care of quietly. Clara swayed. Her face was ashen. Hands trembled. She mumbled about contesting the will. Mr. Davies, who I'd called, walked in. I have all the documentation, Clara. Evelyn foresaw this, he said, holding a thick folder. It's ironclad. Ben is her biological grandson, sole beneficiary, and he's a majority shareholder in your company, as of today. Clara collapsed onto the dusty attic floor, the air leaving her in a gasp. My quiet grandma had been planning for 56 years. The truth always finds a way to blossom, even in the quietest gardens. My landlord, David, tried to evict me with a fake lease, but he didn't realize I'd been documenting his scams for over 3 years. He stood there, smirking, until I pulled out the third irrefutable piece of evidence. The color drained from his face, the smirk dissolved into pure horror. Get out of my building, he shrieked, but it was already too late for him. Get out of my building, David shrieked, his voice echoing in the empty hallway. He slapped a notice on my door, post-dated by 2 weeks. Your lease expired last month. I've got a new tenant moving in. He adjusted his tie, a cheap silk thing. His building, my home for 5 years, was suddenly under siege. He watched me, expecting panic. But David didn't know I'd been documenting his scams for over 3 years. Not just mine, but every tenant's. I ran the Tenants Association. I'd seen his type before. He thrives on fear and ignorance, but I had receipts. I just smiled. That's funny, David, I said calmly, pulling a folded document from my pocket, because my lease agreement clearly states a fixed term of 7 years. I handed him a copy. It was signed by his own hand, dated 5 years ago, with a clear expiration date in 2 years. His smirk faltered. That's an old draft, he stammered, his eyes darting around. I must have given you the wrong one by mistake. He tried to snatch it back, but I held it firm. My paralegal prepared the official one. Oh, did she? I asked, my voice still level. Because I also have this. I pulled out a printout of an email chain. It was between David and his actual paralegal, Maria, discussing the terms of my 7-year lease agreement back then. Her replies confirmed every detail. David's face started to turn a shade of sickly green. She's new. She made a mistake, he insisted, wiping sweat from his brow. That email is irrelevant. I have the real lease right here. He pulled out a crumpled paper from his own pocket. It showed a 1-year term. Really? The real one? I countered, holding up my phone. Then perhaps you can explain this. I played a recording. It was David's voice from a tenants meeting just last month. He was bragging about securing me as a long-term tenant for a full 7 years, the longest in the building. His jaw went slack. The sound of his own voice, undeniable, filled the hallway. He stared at me, then at the phone, then back at me. The color drained from his face entirely, the smirk dissolved into pure horror. He was caught, exposed by his own words, and I had all the proof. "Get out of my building," he shrieked, completely unraveling. "I'll call the police." I simply showed him the last item, a cease and desist letter from the city, already filed based on my 3 years of documentation. He wouldn't call the police. The police would call him. The city investigator arrived the next morning. David was served with multiple violations and faced a class action lawsuit from tenants I'd helped organize. My lease is secure, and David was forced to sell the building within 6 months. Some games are not worth playing with strangers.